Welcome back to our usual breakfast interview. This morning we are looking at something that is outside our normal politics, I would say. I want to focus on one of the biggest projects, the grandest perhaps project that this country has initiated since independence. It's called the Lamu, LAPSET project, the Lamu Port South Sudan Ethiopia Transport Corridor project. And this project is supposed to cost this country $24 billion, which is roughly 2 point something trillion shillings, the biggest project and regarded as one of Africa's grandest projects. We're in the studio with the Chief Executive or the Director General of LAPSET Corridor Development Authority, Mr. Sylvester Kasuku, who will shed light on just how far the project has come and what are the challenges being experienced so far. Karibu Bwana Kasuku, an old friend of mine.
Thank you very much.
Of course, Mutegi.
Yeah. Sounds like a friend of mine. We used to meet places.
Yes. It's good that he's now handling our economic basket, so to speak. So maybe in a nutshell, give us how far is the project and is everything on course?
Yes, thank you very much. What I would state from the onset is that the LAPSET Corridor project is indeed what you can call, from the insurance industry, securing Kenya's future, meeting today's needs and also securing Kenya's future, securing the future of generations to come, and giving comfort and sustainability to our livelihood systems beyond today. The LAPSET Corridor project encompasses 7 key infrastructural components, beginning with the Lamu port, which will be having 32 berths. We have the railway and the road corridors that are joining Kenya with Ethiopia, South Sudan. We have the crude oil pipeline that also joins Kenya with South Sudan as well as Uganda. Uganda is also now in the picture since they consolidated their oil finds. We also have resort cities, 3 resort cities and 3 international airports at 3 key locations. That is 1 in Lamu, 1 in Isiolo, and 1 in Lake Turkana area. We also have the refineries that are also planned within this particular project.
Yeah.
So yes, and you're asking whether we are on course.
How are we on course? In fact, one of the biggest challenges, people don't know when the Lamu project or LAPSET project actually started, because it's been on the plans for a long time. Some say from the 70s. When did actual work commence on it? I mean, we recall the president, previous president Kibaki was, really initiated it and established the authority. But when did the actual work start?
The actual work started around 2002. And you remember on the 2nd of March 2002, we undertook the groundbreaking of the project itself. And the misconception is that the project is here to start. The project started, one, with preliminary works ongoing at Lamu, and as well as key infrastructure investments already taking place, both in Kenya and in Ethiopia. Just to brief you a little bit, and I wish the slides which I had given earlier were shown. Yes. We have already commenced, just even completing the construction works for the port headquarters. We've taken power, 260 megawatts capacity to Lamu, all the way from 360 kilometers from Rabai. That line has the capacity to supply and also evacuate about between 250 to 260 megawatts. That is what we supply Mombasa with today. So we've taken big time power there. We've also completed extension of the runway in Lamu, because we need the air transport and logistics to pick up.
For the construction purposes or for use? Yeah.
Both for construction purposes and for use, because again, when we are talking about resort cities, you have to connect them with appropriate infrastructure. And airports usually work very well for resort cities. It will also work well for the port and accessing Lamu. Right. Just to give you an example, if you go to Sharm el-Sheikh, a resort city at the shores of the Red Sea in Egypt,
yes.
Sharm el-Sheikh, okay, fine, has a road link, but because you need to cross the vast desert, people don't use the road.
You go by air.
Yeah, so everyone uses the air, and at any one time, there are about 1 million people in Sharm el-Sheikh, of which 10% is just the local population only. But the rest of the 90% are actually tourists. And at any one point in time, or at every second, if you look up in the skies, there are about 3 or 4 aircrafts, either some landing and some taking off.
Right.
It's a busy place. So what we've done, both in Lamu and Isiolo, is that we have put in place the airports. In Isiolo, the runway is already completed. The government is now constructing the terminal building. In Lamu, as I've already said, the runway is already extended and improved, and the construction for the parallel taxiway and improvement of the aircraft apron is already in place to take place. So we've already set the stage for a number of activities. And on the front of doing the road, because roads are usually very important, they allow us to do door-to-door business. The slide showing there, that's on the side of Ethiopia. People don't know that the road in Ethiopia up to Moyale is existing, and more construction works are already ongoing also. So we are already also constructing 500
so
kilometers.
So that's the road on the Ethiopian side, coming up to Moyale?
Yes.
So Ethiopia has already commenced on its end of the project, working down.
Yes,
how much has Ethiopia done as part of this LAPSET?
One, if we could go back to the second slide, it will show you that, one, Ethiopia is currently constructing over 500 kilometers, reconstructing, because they'd already constructed before in 1970s.
Yes.
They are reconstructing to put it to better standards. On the Kenyan side, we are also constructing another 505 kilometers from Isiolo all the way to Moyale, so that we meet.
Has that work commenced?
It has commenced, and there are 4 contracts running. And those 4 contracts which are running, one of them is already completed, and the rest are, a number of them are also advanced. In 2 years, you'll be able to drive all the way to Addis Ababa.
From Lamu or from Isiolo?
From Isiolo, even from Nairobi, because now we are in Nairobi, you'll be able to drive from here all the way to Addis Ababa. And the works for the other components that makes us drive from Lamu to Addis Ababa are currently at planning stage, because roads have to be designed, and you are aware that previously we had no designs for the proper linkage with the Lamu port, because this is a new project.
You have seen the project start in 2002.
Yes.
Would you say that what is done is half or quarter? How do you assess the performance?
The progress, yes.
For the road, just to give you...
For everything.
Mutegi, you know that infrastructure projects are not like giving birth to a baby, where it is a one-stop thing, that the baby is born. Even if they are twins or quadruplets, they are born.
Yeah.
Infrastructure projects have got longer gestation periods, and they are also sequenced. You need to deliver them in line of priority. Like currently, the construction of the roads is going to enable us to open up a number of areas, and also to give us access to some of the construction areas that we need for other infrastructures. Let's say for the resort cities and the like. So we have done the sequencing.
Yeah.
One, we are putting in place the road infrastructure to enable us to be able to access the corridor and commence and trigger other infrastructure investments, including other economic sectors of the economy.
What roads is going to connect Lamu with who?
Lamu, there is support.
Yes.
Whose procurement process for construction purposes is already complete. So we will soon commence construction for the Lamu port itself.
Right.
The port needs a road. Therefore, building the road from Lamu, connecting it to Isiolo, so that it connects to Ethiopia as well as South Sudan, will enable us to evacuate cargo and to do to operationalize port business. Secondly,
that road, the construction of that road has not begun.
Yeah, planning works are ongoing, design works.
Design works. Has the contractor been identified? Has the contract been given out for construction?
For the road?
Of the road?
No, the sequence for undertaking construction works for a road requires that you do the design.
Yes.
When you've done the design, then that's when you are able to know what costs.
So it's still at the design stage?
Yes, but it's on a fast-tracked basis, considering that the implementation of LAPSET is actually not just urgent, but it is an emergency, because this country needs to catch up with its peers or previous peers.
In terms of prioritization of the many projects, there are 7 or so grand projects under there. Of course, infrastructure, the road is key. Ethiopia, to Isiolo to Lamu. When is this expected to be complete? What is the timeline?
For between Isiolo and Moyale linking us to Addis Ababa, in 2 years' time, by 2016, the road will be ready.
Between Nairobi, Isiolo and
Isiolo all the way to Addis Ababa. By 2016, most of those projects, they are over. On the Kenyan side, there are 4 projects. On the Ethiopian side, there are about 6 projects. So you have 10 contracts, let me say contracts, 10 contracts running.
Which must be ready
4
by
on the Kenyan
2016.
side, yes.
Which are the 4 on the Kenyan side?
The 4 on the Kenyan side is Merile River, Isiolo to Merile River, which is about 136 kilometers. From Merile River to Marsabit, which is about 120-something kilometers. From Marsabit to Turbi, which is again about 120-something kilometers. And from Turbi to Moyale, which is again another 120-something kilometers.
Tell us about the crucial thing about tendering. How are the contracts being given? Do we see a lot of advertisement, a lot of competition?
Oh yes, these have been given out in a very competitive manner. Even to begin with the port, it was done competitively, run by the Kenya Ports Authority because they're the masters in port construction works, and it has been run. It ran its full life, and a contractor was already identified, and a supervision consultants also identified. And currently, the supervision consultants are undertaking what we call design review. Before you do construction works after design, at the construction stage, you undertake a design review for consistency purposes and quality control, so that what the contractor is going to put in place must be supervised and must conform to the standards and expectations.
Granted, but my worry and the Kenyan worry is that when it comes to tendering, when it comes to giving a contract,
yes,
we don't want to hear anything about the standard gauge railway or the laptop. We want a clean job.
Yeah,
can you assure us about that?
Mutegi and my friend Makali, I think we are developing a high octane of worries in Kenya. It's like you are sleeping on a kingly bed and you are always dreaming, having nightmares. Why do we have that? I think we need to get out of this nightmarish culture.
Experience, my brother, experience.
Yes, I think perhaps we are importing experience, perhaps an experience which you might be having into a wrong era. We need to catch up. We need to catch up with ourselves. That the society has changed. The Kenyan society has moved on, and we are currently having a new dispensation, not just under a new constitution alone, but we are having a new regime. We are having new impetus with regard to how the culture.
The reason why I'm asking this, I think earlier this year, some 2 companies, one I think is called ILOS Kenya and another called Manda Bay Consortium. They went to see the government.
The president.
Which is not wrong.
Yes. Which is not wrong.
Yes.
And they have made proposals.
Which is again not wrong.
Are we going to have counter proposals from other companies?
I think, just as I've said, we need to get out of the worry box. We, as an open society, the way we have said in our constitution, that we are democratic, we are open, and we work with all. We should allow those who give us proposals or who make proposals to us without us asking, and also allowing those who also give us proposals based on what we have asked. So in a situation whereby perhaps somebody has seen an opportunity in an investment that we are promoting as a government, that they think they can do business with them, and they've made a proposal. There is no crime.
Welcome to propose.
Yes, and I think we need to welcome
I think what Mutegi is saying is in a cautionary, that, I mean, all these grand projects are always accompanied or dogged by, scandal, because procurement procedures are not being complied with, or there is not sufficient competitive participation, which is what he's referring to. What is the guarantee that this is happening, given the grand scale of this project?
Yes. What I want to put very clear is that the process for selecting any contractor or any investor will ideally be, satisfying with regard to competition. And just to shed light on perhaps some of the areas which worry me, I think, as I've already said, I invite you to get out of the worry box and have confidence. What we need in this country.
Why should I?
One, just wait, Mutegi.
There's no evidence.
Evidence, yes.
I think you can really live in a world of worries.
Yes.
In the midst of plenty, where you actually need to join in progressing the country.
I think Kasuku is becoming an evangelist. We are being treated to hyperbole. We need reality.
I think, Makali, just, what makes infrastructure work different from politics is that it is real. And if you look on the Ethiopian side, you are already being shown some of those slides.
Yes.
On the Ethiopian side, they are doing even a lot of other things that we are not doing at the moment. For example, you've mentioned, I didn't want to go into the issues of standard gauge railway and the like, because that's outside LAPSET.
Yes.
But I want to tell you that Ethiopia is currently undertaking a construction of 800 kilometers of railway, all the way to the port of
Which cheaper than ours.
No, that is matters of the press, and we wouldn't go there.
Yes.
And you know, the press has the freedom to express themselves the way they want. But if you go to Ethiopia, and I think you need to go to Ethiopia to get yourself cleansed. The other project they are undertaking is Urban Rail, another huge project, and I also gave slides on this. The other project they are also undertaking is a 6,000 megawatts Ethiopian Renaissance, power plant. 6,000 megawatts in one plant, and all these are going on without noise. The same people that we are making noise about here when they win contracts are the same people.
Well,
or
you see, the trouble,
that are also consulting on the other side. So sometimes I think we shoot ourselves in the leg.
Yeah, but Kasuku, may I just point out that there is a huge difference between Kenya and Ethiopia. This is a freer society. We are more critical, more open, more competitive.
Yes, I think
that is why perhaps,
perhaps
that is why some things can pass in Ethiopia, which cannot pass in Kenya because of our enlightenment and our history also of how we do these things.
I think, Makali, just to tackle that bit that you're bringing.
Yes.
Yes, we could be having a history.
Yes.
And we cannot put history ahead of the current, the current track of progress.
Okay.
History has informed us, but history should not impede us.
If it has informed us sufficiently to get out of that, that is fine.
Secondly, what we need to understand is that today, if I took you to task on another day to compare Kenya with another country, you will even say that there is greater freedom to express oneself in Kenya because the new constitution, I think we are forgetting the tools we've put in place that are actually enabling us to talk the way we are talking.
That's true.
And you are free to doubt. But with the same strength with which you are doubting, you need to have greater strength to believe in yourself as a person and as a country. Believe in ourselves, so that we can push the country forward. Yes.
You have said this LAPSET is an emergency.
Yes.
When these two companies went and saw the president, the Treasury Secretary said the decision should be taken urgently about the proposals made by these companies. Tell us to what extent have the proposals been studied and evaluated?
I think that shouldn't even be a point of serious debate, as you're trying to put it.
Yes.
Because the government of Kenya has processes of selecting or identifying investors. If somebody has made a proposal, the government must still follow the process which will satisfy you as well as him and the rest of Kenyans. Therefore, the things that you are talking about, whether we can give you confidence in what we are doing, is that the government must subject that to the due process.
That one I know, but I'm asking the ministries of water, energy, who are supposed to look at the proposals and make decisions. Has it been done?
Mutegi, I'll take you back on your own word. You are asking about competition. You've noted very clearly that one interested investor did make a proposal.
Yeah.
So allow the government to run, to compare that with others that will either be called as a result of an advertisement or others that might also come.
Expression of interest and so on.
Yes, so I think we shouldn't really make that a major debate because that's just one indication that there are people interested in the project.
Right.
But all these must run their full course to satisfy you, to satisfy our national values, and to satisfy the process that will give us value for money for everything that we do.
Let's look at the project specifics. The railway. At what phase is it? Is it still in the design, the planned railway, standard gauge railway up to Ethiopia?
Yes, I would state very clearly that, as I did say when we started this program, is that all the projects have to be sequenced. There are those that must come ahead of the others.
And then so forth.
In this case, on the Kenyan side, we've already undertaken pre-feasibility studies and preliminary, designs.
Yeah.
On the Ethiopian side, they've also completed pre-feasibility studies at the same as, so we are at par on this.
Right.
And this is one of the subjects that we were discussing in the bilateral meeting that we had last week, which we just completed at the weekend, the last weekend.
Yeah.
So what we are doing is that the two countries are synchronizing the development program for the railway To begin with, we've already negotiated what we call the bilateral agreement for on the development of the railway line, both on the Kenyan side and on the Ethiopian side. We've already laid the foundation for what I would call a joint development of this railway. Going forward, we are now going to move to the next stage to undertake perhaps the completion studies for completing the designs. At the same time, we will be looking for investors to come on board on this particular matter, beyond the country itself putting its own money.
LAPSET includes Southern Sudan.
Yes.
There is a crisis in that country.
What is the security of this project?
Or even the progress because of the insecurity there?
Yes, I would say that you are aware that there are specific components that Kenya is dealing with together with its neighbors. And I did mention the neighbors, Ethiopia, South Sudan, and also Uganda. Yes. With regard to South Sudan, we are specifically talking about the crude oil pipeline as one of the first components that were coming on board. Together with this, the road, as well as the railway. And you've heard that the standard gauge railway will also go through South Sudan are also keen on connecting to the railway. Now, to this end, the crisis notwithstanding, development programs or development projects are indeed matters of policy. They are not individualistic, and even if there is a conflict is one of the occurrences or one of the unfortunate occurrences that do take place in human society. And we do pray that South Sudan really comes out of this. I'm going to answer you.
You must appreciate in concrete terms the threat posed to the project by
we are alive to that.
South Sudan.
But at the same time, as I did say before, the negative happenings in our environment should really not be riding over our heads. We should really put enough strength, enough energy, and enough synergy between ourselves so that we can move the project forward against all the adversities that are found within our environment. And in South Sudan in particular, we know that there is a crisis, but what you also need to understand is that the government of South Sudan is also partaking in progressing the project forward. And during our last heads of states meetings on infrastructure, which was held in Uganda, South Sudan was there. And this time they will also be there. And each time we are making progress.
The thing
we know that the media is now awash with the conflict, but what you need to know, at the background, we are also progressing the projects
but
against all adversities that might become the conflict.
Is there a rethink? Okay, first, of course, there is always a plan, and which is based on feasibility studies. Since you commenced implementation, has there been a rethink on some of the aspects that were originally thought to be part of this project, and then you think perhaps they need to be downscaled or varied or altogether abandoned?
What I would like to state again against your statement is that the aspect of perhaps the rethink formula or the rethink direction that you are trying to allude to, whether to downscale or to abandon altogether, can only come up as a result of dwelling too much in worry and in doubt. The Kenyan society today is not a society of doubt.
It's not about worry. It's about viability and the risks posed to a project when you commence.
Let me answer you. We're just setting stage to answer you. What we need to do as a country is to understand that what has been put in place with regard to the plan is not by chance. It is not, it is not a mere...
It was pre-planned and thought through.
Yes, it is properly planned. And with the understanding, just wait so that you get a clear answer. With the understanding that the country needs to move to a new economic dispensation. We need to experience a new economic rebirth. We need to experience a new economic re-engineering so that we move out of the box.
That is true. I mean, there is no dispute about that, Mr. Kasuku. The question that I put to you...
Just wait so that you get a clear answer.
Because I need you to go to that particular answer.
Yes. With that, therefore, the projects that have been proposed are a true measure and are a true treatment to our current and future economic
So they're all
issues.
intact.
They are all intact, and in any case, some of them are being upscaled.
Nothing in the environment, in the economic environment, in regional politics has occasioned any change of plan. Because why I say that, there's a coalition of the willing, doing something else in Uganda, Rwanda,
No,
Kenya.
I think that's politics.
I'm not talking about politics. These are serious investment and economic plans, including the setting up of a refinery, which was agreed on in Uganda. And then we are talking about setting up another refinery in Bargoi. We're talking about the crude oil pipeline. We're talking about a pipeline to Uganda. All these things are related. That's what I'm saying. Have they occasioned any rethink in the regional plan? That's the genesis of that question.
Yes, there has been a rethink, but on the positive side.
Yes, that
in
would
that,
like to know.
yes, that's what I want to tell you, and that's what I was going to tell you that.
Yes.
The rethink is that Uganda has also joined the crude oil pipeline because they've consolidated their oil finds. So the rethink is that the crude oil pipeline will now be bigger than what was previously envisaged. And when we were doing the designs at that time, it was thought that the crude oil pipeline was only going to bring oil from South Sudan.
Yes.
But since then, Kenya has discovered commercial quantities of oil deposits.
Yes.
Uganda has consolidated their oil finds.
Yes.
So the rethink is that the crude oil pipeline is now going to be bigger. We are looking at the Lapsset corridor, not just being a corridor for a conduit for transporting crude oil from South Sudan alone, but is actually now going to be a regional hub corridor for transporting oil at the same time.
Give me the outline of that crude pipeline. How is it going to go? Now we have Uganda, we have Turkana, we have South Sudan.
Yes.
How is this going to work?
What is the current thinking? The meeting point is at Lokichar for the crude oil from South Sudan as well as from Uganda. The routes have already been studied, both by the upstream companies as well as other interested investors. And then from Lokichar, we now have a trunk pipeline running all the way to Lamu. Yes. So the Kenyan oil will join the pipeline at Lokichar, the same to the crude oil pipeline from South Sudan as well as the crude oil pipeline from Uganda.
Lapsset envisages the establishment of special economic zones.
Correct.
Can you tell us more about that?
Yes, the special economic zones, as already planned in Lamu, truly gives us a picture in which we want to create jobs. We want to create jobs, and we want to make the Lapsset corridor a more sustainable corridor in terms of economic development. And the special economic zones will therefore generate production that will be able to use the port for export. So we want to make sure that instead of just importing finished products, which in effect makes us exporters of jobs, because when you import a finished product, you are actually sustaining jobs elsewhere outside the country. In this case, we are doing a reverse of that and creating an economic corridor that will enable us to create jobs. And by exporting whatever we will be making or producing, we will therefore be importing jobs into this country.
What does that entail? I mean, are you going to have maybe a Freeport, Lamu, or are you going to have another Dubai?
I think what we are doing is bigger than just having a Dubai or having a Freeport. But we are creating what we call a seamless production system. We have the port there, and this port, in addition to allowing us to undertake transshipment activities, which is also going to be a new specialized port business, because within the east coast of the African region, we don't have the mega ports that we hear about in this world. So Lamu port is in itself going to be a mega port because it's a deep sea port of 18 meters draft, which is much bigger than what the other ports the east coast are having. It's having a key length where the ship's dock is called the key length. The key length is about on average 400 meters, bigger than what most of the ports on the Eastern Africa coast are having. Like some of them just have 250, 260, 270. So a key length of 400 meters takes one of the biggest ships in the world, which means we are establishing a transshipment port to service the rest of the other ports on the east coast of Africa and beyond. With that, we are bringing in a new business. And then we are creating a special economic zone, which is going to enable us to invite investors. Because once you put infrastructure in place, then you must utilize that infrastructure. And that's what countries like Singapore, Brazil, India, Malaysia have done. So we are going, therefore, to invite investors that are going to invest in the special economic zones and be able to produce, and will be able to export.
Of course, we cannot depart from the whole public worry about tendering, investment in this project.
I can see you are a specialist in public worry.
Yeah,
But,
no,
okay,
in public accountability. That is my area.
Yes.
And governance.
Yes.
And the worries have not dissipated. I mean, they have not. The public still has worries because, as I said, we have a history we are trying to migrate from.
Yes.
But it's up to the office holders. In fact, somebody says you to move us out of the box, not us to move when the box has not opened.
Yes.
So you open the box. The thing is, what is the investment like? Who are actually our partners? How is the funding coming along for these projects?
Yes.
And because people have not seen grand advertisements about tenders on these projects, which are already moving.
Yes, I think sometimes perhaps we have worries which are tagged on certain terminologies like tendering and the like. I think we need to get out of the box.
There's a law, public procurement. Public procurement,
yes,
there's a law there.
Yes, I know there is a public procurement law, and that's not the only law in Kenya. There are several other laws that also reinforce this, the governance process,
that is
including the Constitution.
Yes, that's true.
Yes.
And the Constitution includes public participation, which is a core function in government, which we need to see. That's why these questions are being asked.
Yes, and I think we could do great favor to the economy if the same energy we are using to postulate, we are using to worry, we are using to troubleshoot. You know, if you are a computer scientist, I think you would be one of the best software engineers dealing with this troubleshooting. But in this case, I would say that the environment we are dealing with requires just vigilance. And what you need to know is that the public servant, the Kenyan public servant, is indeed a very patriotic, force. That is why you see all these projects. That deals with your aspect of worry. Because sometimes you think that public servants are not patriotic. Public servants are not for public good. Public servants are indeed the cornerstone of public good in this country. And that is why the public servants have also been part of putting in place the required instruments, whether legal, whether administrative, whether procedural. All these have been put in place because you have competent and patriotic public servants.
There is no doubt.
So we shouldn't really dwell on extreme worries.
No. It is not worries, and I want you to put this in context. It's what we would call legitimate concerns which occupy the public about anything done in their name. Because public funds are being spent, public loans are being procured in their name, and so they need to know what's going on, and they need to get along because they need to buy into these projects because they're involved and it's in their interest. Let's see what the public thinks first about what we're discussing. I'm sure, of course, everybody thinks this is a great project, but that does not stop people from asking legitimate questions.
They need to know that it's a great project.
All right, Mwakazi, what are they saying about Kasuku's, okay, let me not say it.
Many thanks indeed. Of course, we've got loads of positive messages here for you, Bwana Kasuku. We have Fwanga Tom says, good morning, Power Breakfast. Kasuku is doing a good job, and for the first time, I'm seeing a government senior civil servant giving doubtless explanation on a project. He's my former colleague. All right.
Cheers.
Now, let's move on to a bit of an issue here. Professor Buisa from JQuad says, it is not us to get out of the worry box. It is you to take us out of the worry box. We have a history of worries. Please tell us your strategy of getting us out of the worry box.
That's why I'm here.
Okay, another person here says, this is Hussein Miji from Lamu, says, would you please tell me about environmental impact assessment, Article 42, community participation, Article 69, access of information, Article 35, social impact assessment, Article 11 and 44, and the last, land tenure insecurity in the perspective of the Lapsit and people like us, youth, who we are going to be affected. That's Hussein Amiji from Lamu. And then we have another one here. Lapsit remains one of the mega projects, and we appreciate the move. I believe Lapsit has impacts on the land, natural resources, and even has impact on wildlife migration. As mentioned, areas like Isiolo, Merile, Marsabit, among other areas, and above all to the community members. How have they handled the situation? Perhaps one more because of time. We have a gentleman here. Okay. Perhaps I'll just this is this is Principal Mutua from Makueni County says, Power Breakfast, Kasuku is an assertive leader who knows what he's doing. We need leaders who have answers at their fingertips like him. Leaders who give hope, not doom. Keep up, but speed up this economic project. Right, well, that's just about
thank you, Mwakazi. I think we leave it there. There's quite a torrent of good comments about Kasuku's own performance, as well as a positive view of the LAPSET project. But just maybe as we wind up, Kasuku, you can respond to some of those things. Public participation, environmental assessment, which have been raised by members there, and compensation for those communities.
Yes, definitely when you are talking about major infrastructure investments of the kind of LAPSET, sometimes we tend, or sometimes people tend not to get the human side of it. One of the strongest policy positions of this government is that any infrastructure development must have the human face. And that is what the questions are trying to probe or trying to seek answers on. Now, particularly on public participation, we as a government are making sure that we undertake serious public participation, and we've already done this, even in Lamu, where we are already at advanced stage of commencing port construction works, where we've already completed construction of the port headquarters, delivered power, delivered security facilities, among many others. We've made sure that matters of land are handled by the competent authorities, and that compensation is given its rightful share, because these are safeguard policies which must safeguard the interests of Kenyans at any place where we are undertaking infrastructure development. Just like what has already taken place on the Northern Corridor. Anybody who lost land, or anybody whose land was taken for infrastructure development, received compensation. And this compensation is not just thought about in a careless manner, but it is thought about in a very careful manner to consider all economic factors to make sure that people receive comparable compensation for what they lose. Regarding the environment, we do take note of serious environmental regulations, because the government is, first of all, the leader in environmental regulation. The government is the key government environmental regulator. The government has environmental laws which must be seen to be working. Therefore, we've made sure that we've undertaken the necessary studies. First of all, we did an environmental assessment to appreciate the impact of the project in totality. Secondly, we are currently in the process of doing what we call strategic environmental assessment to consider all the project components in unison, so that you don't have what we call one-shot interventions in trying to address environmental impacts. Because what a road might cause as an environmental impact might be slightly different, or different from what a pipeline might do, and what a railway might do, what a resort city might do. But when you combine their impacts, you therefore need to have also a strategic, solution to all those impacts.
So you are sure
we are doing that. Yes, and another thing that goes with that is that we have the other human face of making sure that we plan the entire corridor to provide for schools, to provide for security, to provide for water, to provide for power, and to provide for settlements, and to provide for other activities like agriculture. Because we must sustain life, we must sustain communities, we must create a new livelihood system, we must create a new working environment, we must create a new livable environment, we must create a new environment to enjoy life, so that we don't just build infrastructure for the sake of infrastructure, but we build it to empower society.
Are these things going on simultaneously, or we are first doing the infrastructure?
Yes, they are going on simultaneously, and just to shed a little light on that. For the Lamu Port alone, we already completed an environmental impact assessment, and the fact that we are a government did not preclude us from going through the full process of that. And even though NEMA is a government agency, but we subjected ourselves to the NEMA process, and that is now at the tail end. And we make sure that we address all the environmental issues. Of course, not say that you bend some rules here and there because you're government. I'm just giving you the confidence. That, right? The confidence that you wanted. I want to get you out of the box.
I'll take you on your word. I'll take you on your word because I have no option.
Yes, and there's a bit that you need to understand about addressing the human face of this.
Yes.
The government appreciates the fact that some of the areas where the project is going to traverse might be having elements of disadvantage, might be having elements of what we call historical issues. For example, in Lamu, you did hear the announcement that we are retooling and reskilling about 1,000 youths as a seed investment and as a seed gesture by the government, that we need to change livelihood systems of today's young people who are going to be tomorrow's leaders. So we are giving scholarships for them to pursue different types of specialities.
Yes.
And we've already commenced that process.
Yes. Before we finish, I wanted to ask you whether the major challenges as so far you've encountered, whether any projects have stalled or likely to stall.
Mutegi,
Kasuku is not going to tell you there is a challenge.
As I did tell you, no, I think Makali knows the mindset. Makali knows the new mindset of today's government leaders. We know that there is no part of life which has no challenge. Even as a military, even a military unit with the biggest of weapons might also have a challenge. So what I want to tell you that we don't put challenges ahead of our path. What we do is that we take them to inform us on how to make the project work.
Useful.
So really,
Justin, it would be useful in answering that question to say, for example, we ran into this, and this is how we have sorted out that mess. Then we would know
like
that
financing,
yes,
you know.
yes, like financing.
because giving us a textbook
light on
answer does
financing.
not pass.
Yes, I need to shed light on financing.
Yes.
The government is quite strategic on elements of financing, because it's always thought that infrastructure can only be built by government. But infrastructure can also be a business, can also be an investment opportunity. We've therefore scaled a number of them that need specific government intervention. For example, at Lamu Port, we are putting up the first 3 berths, not because we are the only ones who can do it, but we are providing an appetite for private sector to come on board for investment on port areas. Like we have 32 berths, the government is only doing 3 to create the impetus, to create the confidence, so that private sector can come and build the rest of 29. And private sector also to come and do.
Appetite so far demonstrated?
There is greater appetite. And that's why with the government intervention of putting in place the first 3 berths, we have created the confidence. Because we are not just asking private sector to come and undertake investments, but we are leading by example.
Okay. Let's talk about
finances. I think it's good.
Yes, please.
Yes, financing. So I've already said that for the port, we are putting the first 3, and then private sector will come on board. We'll do concessions for the rest. And then for the
public-private partnership.
Yes, PPPs and concessions.
Yes.
On the parts of the road, we know that there might be a difficulty with regard to a private investor perhaps coming to build the road. But we are not closing that particular bit. What we are doing is that we are currently undertaking what we call a transaction advisory services that will be able to package either some of these projects together, so that if one project is too dry for an investor, they can combine it with a sweetener, a project which is slightly sweeter. That's an investment terminology. It is not a social terminology.
No, I get it. Yes. But for many people, your final word on this, Kasuku. For many people, Lamu is not only far, to the rest of people in this country.
Yes.
This project is also being done very far away from them. They just hear about it, like it's in the sky. How do people get to touch Lamu, to feel Lamu, to be part of this LAPSET? What are the opportunities for people, for Kenyans? I mean,
yes,
it's like it's something happening in the sky.
Yes, that is why we are actually calling upon the media to join us on this development path. Because if you only spend time telling people how difficult and how terrible things are, then people will not know the good things we are doing.
Yes.
So I thank you for inviting us today to come and share with Kenyans. But I wish we could do more of this, because you're actually the people who reach every
Invite us more to Lamu so that we can, look at what you're doing, bring it to the rest of the world.
Yes.
I think that is
so
how I would
what
say.
people need to know is that the reason why you're saying that Lamu is far, or the corridor seems to be far, is because we have a mindset that has boxed us along the northern corridor. Mombasa, Nairobi, Malaba. That's where we live our lives. That's where we are born. That's where we grow up. That's where we work. And that's where we end up as human beings.
Okay.
So what we are doing is that we are creating a new growth zone. Triple growth zone.
To the current one?
Yes. The current one is about 30%. We are opening up the rest of the 70%. We are tripling investment space.
All right.
We are tripling the livable space.
We are
also tripling the economic activity zone. With that, we are therefore targeting to sustain a double-digit economic growth. We are targeting to achieve what we are also calling the middle income status before the year 2030. I don't want to say by the year 2030. Because people might think that we will be waiting as a government, sitting like a duck, waiting for 2030 to come, and then we say, voila.
All right.
You know,
thank you very much, Mr. Kasuku, the Director General of LAPSSET Development Authority, which is spearheading the Lamu projects and many projects. We cannot obviously finish discussing those projects here today. They are grand, they are diverse, but Kasuku says we should not sleep in a king-size bed and have nightmares. Should get out of the box of worries. Everything is fine, and we take him on his word that nothing goes wrong with LAPSSET, given the huge investments expected there. Thank you for coming, sir.
Right.
And thank you for watching.
And thank you, and I wish you invite us more to share with the Kenyans what is going on.
Sure. Exactly.
Yes, rather than telling the worries. But we take on board your worries, because that is indeed the art of government listening. Okay. So we want to tell you the government is listening, and we are up to the task, and we will make sure that we satisfy public demands and public aspirations.
That is the last word. Thank you very much.